Hi, friends. This is 5 Minutes to Make Sense of the Bible. I'm Joe Hopkins. Today, we reflect on the Gospel of John, chapter 8, verses 31 to 36. Let's get into the context and content of these words from Jesus, and then see how we might apply this passage to our lives today. The Gospel of John is one of 4 books in the Bible that recount the life and teachings of Jesus of Nazareth, whom Christians call the Christ, or the Messiah. While John's Gospel tells a lot of the same stories as the other 3, some of the events of Jesus' life are in a different order, and much more of Jesus' teachings take place in Jerusalem than the other Gospels say. The tone of the narration and Jesus' words themselves are quite distinct from Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and there are some different characters too. One of the different characters in John's Gospel, or group of characters really, is the Jews, quote unquote. While the other Gospels speak of specific groups of Jewish people in the 1st century AD, such as the Pharisees, Sadducees, and Herodians, all of whom come into conflict with Jesus at some point, John's Gospel mostly uses the phrase, the Jews. Some Bible scholars debate how to better translate the original Greek word, because John's Gospel was originally written in Greek. Some scholars say the Jews of John's Gospel really only refer to the Jewish leaders, while others think that the words mean residents of Judea, the region surrounding Jerusalem. This debate is important because of the story of conflict between Jesus and the Jews that John's Gospel tells, and the way that Christians have long applied this story to their attitudes and treatment of Jewish people. Sadly, many Christians have interpreted the conflict between Jesus and the Jews in John's Gospel to allow or even encourage anti-Semitism, which is hatred of Jewish people, and anti-Judaism, which is hatred of Jewish religion. Throughout the centuries, church leaders, from Roman Catholic popes to Reformation leaders like Martin Luther to 20th and 21st century Christians, have cited words from the Gospel of John as reason to mistreat Jewish people. While we cannot change what people of the past have written or done, people living today must take the utmost care to avoid anti-Semitism and anti-Judaism now. With all that said, these 6 verses in the 8th chapter of John have great power. Let's note that Jesus is talking with, quote, Jews who had believed in him, unquote, and Jesus instructs them to continue following him, for in doing so, they will know the truth, and the truth will set them free. Truth is a common theme in John's Gospel, and Jesus' conversation partners often misunderstand what Jesus means by truth. In this case, Jesus' dialogue partners misunderstand what Jesus means by the word free, even taking offense at the notion that they might not already be free. Jesus clarifies that he is speaking about freedom from sin, which is to act against the will of God. Jesus continues teaching that anyone who sins is actually a spiritual slave to sin, and a spiritual slave does not stay in the spiritual family of God. However, the Son, probably referring to the Son of God, has a permanent place in God's spiritual family, and the Son of God can grant to those who are enslaved to sin freedom. Now let's freely engage in some questions for reflection. First, how well do you know the Gospel of John? For example, do you know the verse John 3:16? What other verses or stories unique to John's Gospel can you think of? Next, what are some examples of anti-Semitism and anti-Judaism that you can think of from history? What contemporary examples of mistreatment of Jewish people can you think of? How can we ensure fair and equitable treatment of Jewish people in society today? Finally, what sins do you struggle with in your life? How can Jesus' teachings help you gain freedom from sin in your life? So there, 5 minutes to make sense of the Bible. I'm preaching a sermon based on John chapter 8 at Streetsville United Church later this week, so check out our YouTube channel for a recording of our worship services later on. As you read the Bible by yourself, pay attention to what piques your curiosity. The Spirit often tries to catch our attention through our curiosity. Please post your thoughts and questions in the comments of this video to start some more conversation. And as always, while it's good to read the Bible by ourselves, we make the most sense of the Bible when we read the Bible together. Peace, friends.